The jungle doesn't just kill you, it erases you. It devours sound, light, even hope with a cold indifference. Before we descend into the suffocating deep green abyss with Lieutenant John George, take a moment to subscribe and turn on notifications. Because the story we're dissecting today isn't about a soldier. It's the story of a ghost hunting other ghosts. January 1943, Guadalcanal. The air is so heavy it could choke a man thick with the stench of rotting vegetation, gunpowder, and unburied dead. For an ordinary Marine of the 132nd Infantry Regiment, this war is a chaotic, deafening industrial meat grinder. It is a world of mass-produced violence ruled by the rhythmic pounding thump of heavy artillery and the metallic clatter of M1 Garand clips falling into the mud. It is a war of quantity where victory is calculated by how much lead can be blindly thrown into the trees. But Lieutenant John George doesn't believe in quantity. He believes in precision. And in a place defined by chaos, precision is a dangerous heresy. In this mud-soaked purgatory, a wooden crate is delivered stamped with a word that has no place in hell: fragile. While other men scrub mud from their mass-produced military-issue weapons, George pries open his box with the careful touch of an archaeologist unearthing a sacred relic. Inside is a Winchester Model 70. It is a civilian hunting rifle, a beautifully outdated thing with a polished wooden stock and blued steel barrel, glossy as a black mirror. It is a weapon designed for the clean, sharp air of an Illinois autumn for hunting deer in silence. Here among rusted barbed wire and sweat-soaked bodies, it looks absurd. It looks like a toy. The ridicule comes immediately and without mercy. His commanding officer, Captain Morris, looks at the weapon with contempt. To Morris, the Winchester is a burden. It holds only 5 rounds. It requires the shooter to lift the bolt, pull it back, eject the casing, and push it forward to chamber the next round. It's too slow. In a firefight where seconds mean survival, a bolt-action rifle is seen as a death sentence. Other platoon leaders laugh, calling it his mistress, asking if he plans to request the Japanese to pause while he cycles the bolt. They see a man clinging to a sporting pass that no longer exists. They see a tourist who brought a golf club to a knife fight. But they don't see what George sees. They see war as a brawl. George sees it as a geometry problem. He feels a fierce but isolating superiority. Let them spray bullets into the canopy. Let them panic. He runs his thumb along the cold steel of the bolt. He knows something they don't. The Japanese aren't winning because they have more firepower. They're winning because they understand silence. For the past 72 hours, an invisible enemy has been surgically picking off Americans with ruthless precision. 14 men are dead. No one has seen the shooters. No one has seen a muzzle flash. Japanese snipers are ghosts fused into the treetops, waiting for hours, maybe days, for a single chance. They are masters of psychological warfare, turning the jungle itself into a weapon of terror. The morale of the 132nd is cracking. Men are afraid to move, afraid to eat, afraid even to breathe. The American military's industrial machine has stalled in front of a handful of hidden men. The pressure builds until it snaps. The battalion commander summons George at midnight. The mockery is gone, replaced by desperation. The snipers are killing his men faster than malaria. He needs a solution. He needs the tourist with the toy gun. He gives George an ultimatum that sounds more like a death sentence. He wants to know whether the letter George wrote about his abilities is truth or arrogance. He gives George until dawn to prove that a single slow shot placed correctly can do what 1,000 machine gun bullets cannot. George returns to his tent, the weight of the stairs on him heavier than the pack on his shoulders. He doesn't sleep. He sits in the dark, disassembling the Winchester. He wipes the preservative oil from the barrel. He checks the screws on the scope mount. He loads 5 .30-06 rounds, pressing each one into the magazine with a thumb that does not tremble. The isolation is now complete. He is no longer just an officer. He is an experiment. He is about to walk into the trees alone, leaving behind the safety of the herd. As the sun begins to bleed through the canopy on the morning of January 22nd, John George steps through the perimeter barbed wire. The camp's noise fades behind him, replaced by a screaming biological silence. He is entering the enemy's cathedral, and he carries only what matters: a focused mind and a cold barrel. Crossing the defensive perimeter is not like entering a forest. It is like wading straight into the throat of a beast. The jungle at Point Cruz is not passive terrain. It is a hostile, suffocating force. As George pushes deeper, the harsh, blinding sunlight of the clearing is strangled by 3 layers of canopy above, filtered into a dim, bruised twilight. The air here does not move. It presses against skin, a wet blanket woven from humidity and decay. Every step is a negotiation with the mud that is always ready to swallow his boots. A kind of volcanic clay, sticky and thick with an ancient rot. George moves with a slowness that would drive an ordinary infantryman insane. He has left the war of movement behind. Here, silence is the only armor. He finds the remains of a Japanese bunker, a concrete block blasted apart by artillery days ago, and nests into the rubble. He is 240 yards from the tree line where the ghosts live. He brings the Winchester to his shoulder, the familiar weight of the walnut stalk against his cheek acting like the only anchor keeping him sane. Through the Lyman Alaskan scope, the deep green wall of vegetation lunges closer, magnified, but no less impenetrable. The psychological weight of this place begins to press down. It is the silence that is most terrifying. It isn't empty, it is watching. Cicadas scream in a harsh metallic chorus, a wall of white noise that masks the snap of a branch or the slide of a bolt. But whenever George shifts his weight even by an inch, the chorus dies in the space around him, a ripple of silence spreading from his position like rings on water. The jungle knows he is there. He is a foreign object, an infection, and the island's immune system is tracking him. Hours melt into each other. The heat breeds hallucinations, blurring the edges of his vision. He focuses on the banyan trees. They are grotesque things, aerial roots tangled like knotted muscle, creating a maze of shadows where a man can stand in plain sight and still be invisible. George sweeps through them, section by section, branch by branch. He is searching for a break in the laws of nature, a straight line in a world of curves. A patch of shadow, too dense compared to the rest. At 9:17, the jungle betrays one of its children. A single branch sways against the rhythm of the wind. George freezes. He locks his breath in his chest, lowers his heart rate by pure will. Through the scope, the shadows sharpen. 87 feet up, tucked into the crotch of a massive banyan, a shape materializes. It is a man wrapped in dark camouflage, netting motionless like a tumor on the bark. The sniper is facing east, watching the trail George's battalion uses for resupply. He is a statue of patience, a predator waiting for a careless deer. George slips his finger into the trigger guard. The Model 70's trigger breaks like a glass rod, sharp, final, unforgiving. He doesn't think about the man. He thinks about wind. He thinks about bullet arc. He squeezes. The Winchester's report is not the chattering rattle of a machine gun. It is thunder, a violent, solitary tear ripping the morning open. The recoil hammers George's shoulder, a solid, reassuring kick. Through the scope, the result is immediate and grotesque. The figure jerks hard as if yanked backward by an invisible wire, but the body does not fall. It flips backward and catches in a tangle of vines and roots. The sniper hangs there upside down, swaying gently in the aftershock of violence. George does not cheer. He feels no intoxication of victory. A cold fear settles in his stomach. The body looks like a broken puppet cut loose by a cruel master. The jungle goes silent in an instant. Birds stop singing, insects stop calling. For 10 seconds, the only sound is the ringing in George's ears and the wet thud of his own heart. He works the rifle's bolt. Click, clack. A smoking brass casing spits out into the mud. He slides a fresh round into the chamber. The silence holds heavy and accusing. Then he realizes he hasn't just killed a soldier. He has announced his presence to the void. And now, out there in the deep green darkness, something else has opened its eyes and is looking back. Killing becomes a rhythm. A strange industrial melody imposed on natural chaos. A second target. A third. A fourth. By noon, George has dropped 3 more bodies from the canopy. Each shot repeats the first, the painful wait, the calculation of wind and shadow, the decisive squeeze, the shove of recoil. But with every cycle of the bolt, the satisfaction drains away. In its place is the feeling of exposure, slick and creeping like oil. He is painting a target on his own back. The jungle is not big enough to hide the clean, sharp crack of a high-velocity sporting rifle. It is a sound that does not belong here, a signature as unique as a fingerprint, and the enemy is listening. At 9:57, the jungle answers. It doesn't answer with a sniper's bullet. It answers with the heavy, choking thump of mortars. They have found him not by sight, but by the rhythm of his violence. The first round lands 40 yards away. It throws a column of black mud and shredded ferns into the air. The ground shudders. George doesn't think. He reacts with the desperate instinct of a cornered rat. He snatches the Winchester and bolts from the ruined bunker, boots skidding on slick clay lungs burning as he throws himself into a shallow depression behind a fallen mahogany trunk. The third round erases his previous position completely. The concrete pillbox where he had been sitting seconds ago vanishes in an orange flash and crushed stone. The shockwave slams him into the wet ground, driving the air from his chest. Shrapnel winds through the air like angry hornets stabbing into the wood above his head. He presses his face into the leaf rot, the metallic taste of adrenaline flooding his mouth. They know. They don't just know he's there, they know exactly where he is. That awareness is colder than the mud seeping through his uniform. There are eyes in the trees he cannot see. Thousands of eyes. When the bombardment stops, the silence returns but changed. Heavier. George lies motionless for 20 minutes, his ears ringing with a high, shrill whine that refuses to fade. He begins to whisper to the rifle. It isn't a conscious decision. He runs his hand along the smooth walnut stock, murmuring reassurance that they're both fine. That the zero hasn't shifted, that the lens isn't cracked. The gun is no longer just a tool. It is the only thing in the universe not trying to kill him. It is his confidant. It is the only other living creature in his world. He moves again, belly crawling like a reptile, searching for a new vantage point. In a small clearing near a stream, he stumbles upon the corpse of a Marine. The body has been there for days, bloated and gray in the heat. George stops. He shouldn't look. But a sick curiosity forces him closer. He examines the wound. It is a single hole in the throat, clean, precise, surgical. It is not the ragged tear of a Japanese 6.5mm round. It looks exactly like the work of a soft point 30-06. It looks like the work of his Winchester. A ridiculous horror drives straight into his brain. He looks at his hands, then at the rifle. For an instant, heat and exhaustion conspire to crack his logic. Did he shoot this man? No, that's impossible. He has only just come here, but the wound is a perfect mirror of his own craft. Is there another hunter out there? A dark version of himself moving through the treetops, selecting the weak, or maybe the enemy has a rifle identical to his. A doppelganger is waiting in the deep green darkness to prove who the better marksman is. He backs away from the corpse, breathing, shallow and broken. The trees seem to lean closer, their branches interlacing like the bars of a cage. Every shadow looks like a man. Every vine looks like a rifle barrel. Paranoia, thick and suffocating, tightens around his throat. He is no longer hunting men. He is being herded. The invisible enemy is playing with him, using mortars to push him, using bodies to mock him. He grips the Winchester so hard his knuckles turn white. He has to find them before his mind shatters. He has to kill that shadow before that shadow becomes him. By the third day, the sky betrays them. It doesn't just rain. The heavens open and try to wash the entire island out to sea. Dawn on January 23rd is not greeted by sunlight, but by a curtain of gray liquid turning the world into a smeared watercolor. The temperature drops, but under George's skin a furnace has been lit. Malaria, or maybe just the pure toxin of extreme stress, seizes his body. He shakes violently, his teeth chattering against the wooden stock of the Winchester, creating a rhythmic clicking he cannot control. He huddles in the hollow of a rotting stump, rainwater pooling around his waist mixing with his own filth. Fever distorts everything. The trees no longer stand still. They breathe. Vines look like snakes writhing in mud. He squeezes his eyes shut to erase the mirage. But behind his eyelids, he sees the faces of the men he killed. They aren't angry, they are waiting. They are a silent jury, watching from the shadows of his mind. At 9:12, a shape moves through the pouring rain. It is the 10th sniper. The Japanese soldier used the storm's noise to climb into position. A smart move, but in the end a fatal one. George sees him not as a man, but as a heat streak in a cold world. He raises the rifle. The scope is fogged with condensation. He doesn't wipe it. He doesn't need to. He knows where the center of the lens is by instinct. His hands tremble with chills, but the moment his cheek touches the comb of the stock, the shaking stops. It is muscle memory deeper than sickness. He fires. The muzzle flash is a brief, furious star in the dim gloom. The 10th man goes down, swallowed by brush, without a sound. George works the bolt. A brass casing flips out, hissing into the water. 10. The number echoes in his skull. 10 ghosts. But the satisfaction is gone. In its place is a hollow fear gnawing at his core. Intelligence reports said there were 11 snipers in this area. 10 are dead. That means there is one left. Only one. The rain stops as abruptly as it began, leaving a heavy, pressurized silence like the air inside a tomb. George scans the tree line, searching for the 11th. He waits. Minutes turn into hours. Nothing moves. No birds return. No insects sing. The 11th sniper's silence is different from the others. The others were hunters. This one feels like a force of nature. George's mind begins to fracture. Why doesn't the 11th shoot? He must have heard the shot that killed the 10th. He must know where George is, and yet the jungle remains still. A terrible thought begins to root itself in George's fevered brain. What if there is no 11th at all? What if the 11th sniper is the jungle itself waiting for George to die of exhaustion and sickness? Or worse, what if the 11th is so good, so perfectly camouflaged that he is watching George right now? From 5 feet away, smiling, waiting for the perfect moment of despair, George starts counting leaves on the nearest tree to keep himself from screaming. 104, 105. The numbers blur. He looks at his rifle. The blued steel seems to rust before his eyes, rotting like everything else in this cursed place. Then he realizes the war has changed. It is no longer about ballistics or camouflage. It is a duel of will. The 11th Shadow isn't trying to shoot him, he's trying to break him. He is letting fever, fear, and isolation do the work for him. The 11th man is a master of silence, and George is just a loud, trembling child with a toy gun slowly losing his mind in the mud. Going down into the bomb crater is not a tactical decision. It is a retreat into the Earth's open wound. George slides down the muddy bank, his boots losing traction on slick clay, tumbling until he hits the water at the bottom. This isn't clean rainwater. It is a stagnant, opaque soup of mud gunpowder, rotting leaves, and the forest's bodily fluids. It smells of copper and old graves. He wades in the liquid rising to his chest, cold and slimy, immediately sucking the heat from his fevered skin, but doing nothing to cool the fire burning in his brain. From this low vantage point, the world shrinks into a circle of gray sky and a jagged crater rim. He is trapped, and then he sees it. Through the tangled roots at the crater's edge, he spots a shape on a low palm tree 40 yards away. A steel helmet, a shoulder, a sniper. But something is wrong. It is too low, too exposed, too obvious. It is a decoy, a dummy made of straw and cloth placed there to draw fire. The realization hits George like a physical blow. The 11th isn't just hiding, he is communicating. The decoy is an insult. It is a message saying, I know you're watching. I know you're desperate. I know you'll shoot at a shadow because you're terrified. If George fires at the dummy, the muzzle flash will reveal his position in the crater. And the real sniper, watching from higher up, deeper in shadow, will finish him. If George doesn't fire, he will have to wait in this cesspool until sunset or until malaria kills him. George lowers himself deeper into the water. He submerges to his shoulders, then his neck, until only his nose and eyes break the oil-slick surface. He holds the Winchester above his head, a steel offering raised to an indifferent sky. Silence returns, but down here, at water level, it is different. Water becomes a conduit for sound and madness. As the cold seeps into his bones, the hallucinations arrive in force. He hears voices. They don't come from the trees, they come from beneath the water. Whispered conversations of the men he killed bubbling up from the sludge. He feels things brush his legs, eels, roots, or maybe fingers of the dead, trying to pull him down to join them. He squeezes his eyes shut, trying to stop the sensory overload, but the darkness is worse. In the darkness, the 11th is everywhere. Then the sound comes. Splash, rustle, footsteps, wet footsteps suctioning through mud, slow, deliberate, heavy. George's eyes snap open. The crater rim is empty. Is it real? Or is it his heartbeat pounding against the water? The footsteps stop, then start again, circling the rim. The predator is checking the trap. George holds his breath, lungs burning, his body shaking so violently it sends small ripples across the stagnant surface. He is no longer a hunter. He is an amphibian, a swamp creature hiding from light. He understands with terrifying clarity that he is no longer John George, Illinois state champion. That man drowned hours ago. What remains is a raw nerve ending a pair of floating eyes in filth, waiting for the unavoidable bullet that will turn the water red. He wants to scream, to stand up and fire blindly just to break the tension, but he cannot. Fear has paralyzed him. The water is no longer just cover, it is a grave, and he is burying himself alive to delay the end by a few more seconds. The footsteps stop. The silence that follows is not the absence of sound, but the presence of a decision. At the rim, tall grass parts. The 11th appears. He is not a demon. George's fever has summoned. He is not a ghost or a jungle spirit. He is a man coated in the same volcanic mud, clinging to George, his uniform torn and rotting in the humidity. He crawls on his belly, moving with the painful slowness of a reptile. He grips an Arisaka rifle with the same desperation that turns his knuckles white, the same way George grips the Winchester. In that instant, looking up through filthy water, George doesn't see an enemy. He sees a mirror. He sees himself stripped of nationality and ideals, reduced to a trembling animal trying to survive green hell. The Japanese sniper makes his one fatal mistake. He looks at the decoy on the palm. He believes the lie George refused to bite. For a fraction of a second, the 11th's attention drifts to the straw dummy, waiting for the muzzle flash that will never come. That fraction is the only mercy George gets. George surges up from the water. He does not rise like a soldier, he rises like a corpse floating out of a grave. Stagnant mud pours from his shoulders, thick and heavy. He drags in a deep breath, sucking humid air, his lungs expanding with sharp, violent pain. The movement breaks the stillness. The 11th snaps his head around. His eyes lock onto George, wide, bloodshot, filled with exhaustion, so deep it looks like madness. There is no hatred in those eyes, only recognition. He sees the same fear, the same mud, the same craving for an ending. The Japanese soldier tries to swing his rifle, but he is fighting the gravity of his own fatigue. George doesn't aim. There is no time for scope wind or breath control. This isn't sport. This is collision. He points the Winchester by instinct, the weapon an extension of his trigger finger. The distance is measured in heartbeats, not yards. George squeezes. The blast is deafening in the cramped space of the crater mouth. It blows water off the surface into a fine mist. The bullet hits the 11th in the chest, lifting him slightly from the mud before slamming him down. The Japanese sniper does not scream. He does not thrash. He simply collapses his rifle, slipping from his hand and sliding down the slope into the water beside George. The echo rolls through the trees and dies, swallowed by moss. George stands there, waist-deep in filth smoke curling from the barrel. He stares at the body at the rim. The 11th lies still, face turned to the sky, eyes open, fixed on the gray clouds. Fear has drained from his face, replaced by a loose, empty piece. George feels bile rise in his throat. He has killed the monster, and in doing so, he has seen its true face. It was only a man. And now, alone in the crater with the corpse, George understands that the only difference between victor and victim is that one must keep living in this hell, while the other has finally been allowed to leave. The crater's silence breaks not by nature, but by the intrusion of the world George left behind. Voices drift through the trees, loud, crude American voices. A patrol has heard the shot. They are coming to investigate, crashing through brush with the subtlety of a landslide. For any other soldier, the sound would be salvation. For George, it feels like violation. The intimate, terrifying communion he shared with the 11th has been shattered. He climbs out of the crater mouth, leaving the body and the Japanese rifle in the mud, retreating not from the enemy, but from the noise of the living. The walk back to the battalion perimeter is a blur of green and gray. George moves like a sleepwalker. The adrenaline that kept him alive for 4 days evaporates, leaving a bone-deep exhaustion that makes his limbs feel like lead. He crosses the perimeter wire at 11:13. A guard stops him. But George doesn't hear words. He only sees a mouth moving. He slips past a ghost, coated in volcanic filth, his eyes fixed on a point 1,000 yards away. At headquarters, the reception is loud. Captain Morris is there, grinning, slapping George hard on the back. The report has been sent. 11 snipers are dead. The area is cleared. Infantry can advance. They call him a hero. They call him a savior. They ask to see the rifle, the miraculous toy that cleared the jungle. George hands it over without a word. He feels nothing. Praise sounds like static. They are celebrating a scoreboard, a list of bodies. They don't understand that the man who walked into the jungle 4 days ago did not come back. That night alone in his tent, George performs the final ritual. He breaks down the Winchester Model 70 into its parts. He wipes mud from the stock. He pushes solvent-soaked patches through the barrel, driving out fouling and grime. He polishes the blued steel until it shines under lamplight. He is trying to scrub the jungle off the metal, trying to erase the memory of the crater. But when he looks through the Lyman Alaskan scope one last time, checking the lens for cracks, he doesn't see the crosshair. He sees the reflection of his own eye, wide haunted. He sees the 11th staring back from inside the glass. George places the rifle back into its wooden crate. He closes the lid and latches it tight. It looks like a coffin. He will keep fighting in Burma, earn medals, live a long life as a scholar and a writer. But part of him will always remain in that bomb crater waist deep in black water, waiting for the silence to return. He survived the duel, but he lost his peace. The jungle took his shadow and replaced it with its own. And that brings us to the end of the hunt. John George's story is a reminder that in the conflict between man and machine, the most dangerous weapon is the human mind, and the heaviest burden is the price of using it. History is full of these quiet moments. Personal duels decide the fate of an entire unit, but leave the winner hollow. We are dedicated to digging these stories up from the mud, polishing them, and presenting them to you. If you felt the tension in the cold water, if you held your breath when the 11th appeared, then now you are part of this patrol. Don't let this story sink into the archives. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss a mission. Leave a comment below. Tell us about a moment in your life when you had to stand alone against adversity, when patience was your only weapon. We read every comment. Thank you for watching. Thank you for remembering the craft of the past. And until next time we open the history books, keep your gunpowder dry and your eyes on the tree line.